I'm Mirela Gavra, the publisher of the Diplomat Bucharest, and I thank you all for joining us today for the Reorganizing the Work conference. We'll spend the next 1 hour and a half in a hopefully pleasant and open dialogue about the workplace environment's status today, what has changed, what will follow, and how we should address the most pressing work-related priorities in the upcoming future. First, let me thank our partners that supported us in organizing the conference. Gold partners, WIPRO, Suchipova Attorneys, J8 Office Park, partners, OMV Petrom, WAVE, C1. Supporting associations, ANIS, Cluj IT, ACUE, APAR, and media partners, Financial Intelligence, Economistul, România Durabilă, Club Economic, and Outsourcing Today. I also want to thank and welcome our guest speakers today. Mr. Tivadar Runtac, CEO, Kim Complex, Romulus Mărculescu, Risk Management and Compliance Head Europe, Vipro, Crina Ilie, People Function Leader Europe, Genpact, Radu Mavrodin, Vice President Human Resources, OMV Petrom, Cleopatra Leacu, Partner, Sucipopa Attorneys, Florin Furdui, Country Manager, Portland Trust, George Didoiu, Director Tenant Service Office, Agency Romania, Colliers International, Discussion Facilitator. I hope you will enjoy this afternoon spent together and find the discussion inspiring. After the event, we will publish on our web platforms, website, social media, and newsletter the main statement of the event. Also, on our YouTube channel, everyone can access the full recording of today's conference. Now, let me invite George Didoiu, to officially start the discussion with your appreciated guest in the panel. Thank you, George. The floor is yours.
Thank you. The virtual floor is mine. Mirela,
exactly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation as well. I also want to welcome everybody that's a colleague today in the panel and everybody in the audience. I think I like the title, Discussion Facilitator. Maybe I can use it on my business card from now on, because everybody tells me that, real estate broker may be a job that's going to have some challenges in the future. So I may need to readapt to that. But kidding aside, I'm really excited to be here. And I'm really happy to see again some of the members in today's panel and meet the new ones. And I think I want to start just by addressing one fact that few people are talking about, and I think it's really essential for us as human beings. I think, it's okay to admit that these are unprecedented times and that it's okay to be afraid of not knowing what's going to happen, because really, we don't know what's going to happen. That's why we're here today, to try to find out. And hopefully, thankfully, we have a bunch of really qualified people today to teach us about that. And at the end of the day, we are all still looking forward to what our role will be in the new economy, what our family life will look like, if we will work from home or we still keep, the glamorous office spaces we have. I definitely believe we're going to need both. So what's exactly going to happen in the future? So I think a sense of fear and I think a sense of wonder are more than natural. I think we should admit that. We also should admit that for the time being, we hold only part of the answers. And going forward, let's all today try to facilitate and answer, the following question. What will be relevant above anything else, starting with month of June and 6 months and 1 year from now, both from a perspective of safety of the workplace, because, first and foremost, we're talking about health and safety. But just as important, if I may add, what our role will be in the upcoming future, in the upcoming business world, so to speak. So with your permission, and obviously we welcome questions from the audience, with your permission, I'd like to tackle the future, what the future of business and work will look like. But obviously also talk, because it is such an essential topic, about what what do the employees and employers on either side need to look at going forward, and what we can all expect. I can promise you one thing, and again, I wish I heard this more from more people. Although we are, a bit surprised of what's going on right now, everything that's going on good in the world today is due to the fact that mankind has the capacity to adapt. So make no mistake about it. Some jobs may change. The business world may look a little different in the future. We all may need to learn one or two new skills, but we definitely will adapt. So make no mistake about that. Without further ado, let's start things, on a positive note, and I would say on a high note. And allow me to go to Crina with the first question, because I believe that one of the key solutions for all of us going forward is how the employees, people we work with on a daily basis, will respond to this, as I was saying, unprecedented times. So Crina, what would you say are the most sensible aspects when it comes to a huge organization like the one you're representing in keeping people engaged? And where do you see that going in the next 6 to 12 months?
Good afternoon, everyone, and nice to be in this audience today. I'm sure I will learn a lot from this, and happy to share a few insights from our point of view. I would say, indeed, these times are testing every one of us, but large organizations even more, and especially distributed organization. I'm part of a company who has over 100,000 employees across the globe. And probably we had a slight advantage because we also have a large center in China. And I mean a slight advantage in the sense that there was a little bit of preparation and an expertise there. And even now, as we are returning to the new normal, there are best practices which our colleagues there are implementing, which we are ready to consider, embrace, and replicate. Just to pick two things with relationship to your question, I would say it's critical to communicate. And I can't emphasize this. And this means, really leading from the front, ensuring transparency, using those means of communication which are actually close to employees, and the tone and the language which they can comprehend. So I would say I can't emphasize enough on how important it is to make the messages transparent, accessible, and also in a language which is easy to understand. That's the first, and I would say the most important part. And the second piece which I would call out when it comes to this new reality, which, as you also said, I believe it's here to stay, is for all of us in leading roles and in large organization, joining forces to actually manage this new blurry delimitation between work and life. So, helping our colleagues not to go in a burnout, helping them to manage households, families, jobs in a way which still gives them joy, energy, and the power to be curious about the future.
I understand. I was reading recently how important the tone in which you communicate with your employees is, and it's namely because of the fact that for most of this period, people cannot see you, or they see you via webcam, but it's not the same emotion as if you're in the same office or in the same conference room. And I absolutely liked that article because it was saying that leaders must do their utmost to make sure that the tone, the emotion is transmitted to their employees, more so now than ever before, because people are definitely starving for that kind of interaction and communication. Radu, what would you say? Do you agree with Crina? Do you have anything else to add to this?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks a lot, Georgia, and thanks a lot, Crina, for allowing me to to agree with you. I know it's more interesting to disagree, but in fact, I cannot agree more. Community. There are a lot of trends, in fact, and clearly you were asking the most difficult question about the future, because it's easy to talk about the past. The past was 2 months ago, what we did in order to let's say, to weather the immediate impact of the crisis. We may talk about today, but the real question is about the future. Now, there are two futures. It's the near future, what we will do tomorrow morning, and here everyone is focusing today to some to restart the work, some to be back to the office, some to continue the work, but to be back at the, let's say, old ways of organizing work. And then there is the distant future. And at least for the distant future, to be very honest, the real answer is that I really don't know. Okay.
So you're saying, Radu, what, 12 to 18 months from now, more than that?
Well, I would say that starting with 6 months, it's already the distant future, because everything will change. I mean, every day it's a new challenge. Every day will bring a change, and anyway, we all know that we won't be back at the previous way of, let's say, organizing work, whatever the future will bring to us. But okay, even if I don't have the answer, what I really do know is that there are a lot of trends and a lot of important things to tackle. The first one will be, yes, communication, because Krina was talking about it. Communication it's paramount. Communication is also related to a new type of leadership. So clearly this will, in this period, we will see who's, let's say, do we have the right leaders, okay? Because they need to communicate with more empathy. They need to put more heart in their communication. They need also to use communication, let's say, from the top-down angle, of course, in order to pass the message, to put teams to work together, but also they have to enhance the bottom up even more than before. It's they need to reach the individual, but they also need to reach the collective spirit, which is clearly much more difficult than before. And even for the bottom up, we need to look at a few things, because individuals do not behave and let's say the same way in a normal meeting than in a virtual meeting. This could be difficult for some, but this could be also, for example, an opportunity for enhancing diversity, if you want, because just to give an example, some introvert people will have the opportunity to express better, to express more of their personality, to be less squashed by the senior guys. And again, it's also about delegation and creating the global.
Radu, just one question. When you're talking about leaders behaving in a different way, do you think that, for the most part, I think it's fair to assume that most managers and leaders do need a sense of control, right? And it's one thing to have the sense of control when you see your employees in the office setting day after day, but you may fear as a leader, as a manager, that once they're out of reach and you only see them via webcams and stuff like that, you lose that sense of control. Do you think they should exercise what we refer to as micromanagement, or do you think they, really have to get out of the famous comfort zone and let their employees and trust their employees and trust their people?
Look, it's really a great question, because maybe it's good to put things into context, because for example, Krina and myself, we are coming from representing a very different type of organization. So for us, it's the energy sector, it's industry, it's a heavy, finally, organization with a long past. That means that We have very good managers. I hope we also have very good leaders, but there is an average profile of leadership. So it is just to give you an example, because on the near future, we are of course working to improve our flexi-working system. Okay, flexi-working, that means teleworking. I mean, working from home or working from Starbucks, maybe, you know.
Yeah.
And flexi time. But we had it already. We had it in the past, and we were allowed more or less to have the Friday from home in some departments. It is in place, I don't know from when, from a long time, and it was really not used. It was really not used. It was not really even known that it is possible in some departments, just because a lot of managers prefer to have the teams physically with them in the office. Now, clearly we will, I don't know what the final model will be for us, but basically I would like to go for a 50% model, to have alternate teams, you know. This is very, very aggressive, and this will bring a fundamental cultural transformation, because if you accept as a leader to have your team virtually with you, clearly the first thing is that you will assess more the output, more the result, okay, and less the activity, the physical presence. So this is management by objectives, and this clearly excludes micromanagement, just to answer your question. And we can go very, very far with this cultural impact.
We're in 100% in agreement, and I'm going to go to Tivadar in just a second. We're 100% in agreement, but as I said, as a manager, your sense of trying to control things, I think may be tested or has been tested these last couple of months and going forward as well. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that. And I know Tivadar really wants to input on this one, so please.
Desperate to talk. Thank you. I wanted to go back to the earlier comment of Radu when he said about far future, difficult to predict. Actually, I see it a little bit different. Well, completely different. I say that what will happen in 100 years' time, I can tell you, there will be robots flying all around, up and down. What's going to happen tomorrow is not that easy to say, whether my customer will cancel the order or not. Will we be able to collect the cash from them or not? These are real questions. So short-term predictability is gone. These plans that we can make are very often for 2-3 days. And Kim Complex being the biggest chemical firm in the region, we produce mainly chemical raw materials, which are polyols, all kind of things that are used in the chemical industry. And now in the downtown, well, car industry, furniture industry is done. You would say the simplest way is to close the operation. But we are only company who produce also the hypochlorite, and this is used for disinfection. Not only disinfection of surfaces, but also of water. So if we stop the production, it means that not only Romanian cities, but also the surrounding countries, Bulgaria, Greece, Athens, would stay without drinkable water. Why do I say this? Because if we cannot plan ahead our production in a way that that we can make it tomorrow and also 2 weeks time and 3 months time, then there would be a much bigger and much faster catastrophe than the COVID-19 on itself. In this situation, to engage our employees, to make sure that they continue working despite their tensions, their fears, is essential, not only for the company, but for the whole society. And when we talk about communication and the long and short-term planning, just a personal experience. I joined this company in February, and I had my short, medium, and long-term plan to spend the first 2 months in the 2 factories that we have in Romania, to get to know all the people, the technology, to familiarize with them, and then to visit all our customers in the neighboring countries. And well, after 2 weeks started this COVID miseria. I could not meet my people, and now we have 2,000 employees with whom I try to establish the relation, not to maintain, but to establish the first relation remotely. Yeah. Vast majority of them do not have access to internet in the business. So it is not an easy task. And
I'm sure it's not, yes.
What the immediate impact of this crisis is that we have to take a lot of new competencies, how to adapt to the new situation, being this one or being something else, and react fastly, see the opportunities. What does it mean that we have to invest in infrastructure, in digitalization, and to open new lines of communication that Krina highlighted is very crucial.
You have a very important and unique role today, Tivadar, because most of us, as far as I can tell, you know, we're consultants, developers, HR experts, lawyers, but you seem to be the one person today who is actually you know, directly involved in production. I know obviously OMV does that on an energy scale, but I mean, you know, you're actually in charge of the production aspects and the you know, the operations of your enterprise. So my question is, does it feel, you know, different? Does it feel different from just working in an office settings? Are people who actually work in factories and are taking care of production for us of goods or services or whatever, do they have a different mindset, or what's the story there? Do they feel confident in the future? Do they still enjoy their jobs? Do they fear coming to work?
When I talk to people whom I can talk to, I have this very encouraging spirit of, I wouldn't call it proudness, because it is somehow accomplishing a task, but respect to what we have to do. Maybe this is the right word. Okay. We know that we have a job, we have a task, and people act with this respect to our job. This is what I feel, mixed with fears, of course, and concerns, but also a lot of new spirit and new ideas coming up.
Understood. Thank you so much. I just want to change directions for a little bit. You know, the one person I share a knowledge of a market with is Mr. Florin Furdui. For those in audience who do not know, you know, quite a lot about the office market, Portland is, I would say, the pioneer of the office development market, and Florin has been on board for from the early stages, one of the largest and most best known office developments in Bucharest. So I just want to ask, I'm obviously speaking about the corporate world right now. So I'm talking about people working in an office settings with desktops or laptops. So not directly in factories, which, Tivadar, I understand, is a whole different level of responsibility. So I just want to ask Florin, do you see this trend that everybody's been talking about, this work from home, as being implemented on the large scale? Do you see that as something that could be potentially happening? You've been dealing with tenants, large international companies for, I would say, 15 years now. And a lot of GMs and a lot of CFOs have, you know, negotiated with you, and you have the chance to know them as your tenants. Do you see this as being like a permanent thing going forward?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Josh, for the introduction. Yes, we've been around for the last 20 years in the office market, mostly in Bucharest and in the region. I think that the question for the future is mostly related to the trust, to the concerns of the people to go back to work, to go back to a normal life. What are the concerns and how do we address them? And we as the office industry, and we as also as Portland as players, I think we have a huge responsibility in this part. As we discussed yesterday, I think we should take a more holistic approach. I think there are more stakeholders in this overall trust level of the people going back to a normal life, and the government administration being one, the landlords and property managers being the other ones, just sharing the measures and make the communication important. How do you prepare the offices for the return, and also the workplaces for the return to work? The employers bear a huge responsibility to make the employees, and I'm going to address the answer right now. I think that the telework, the remote work from home or work from a different location, it's been part of the culture of, at least for the office section, for many years already. It's not a new trend. I think that what it's in our view, what is going to happen, I think that the companies will consider this as a more and more as an alternative. People are already taking it as 1 day or 2 days per week already on a regular basis on the more advanced companies. The companies who have like a more militarized view of the life, I think they will be forced to take a more flexible approach to life. But in the end, I think people still need to have the community. And then I think it was mentioned earlier, I think the fine line between the work life and the personal life is very difficult to draw when you're at home. I experienced it with myself as well, and I think all of us have experienced when to stop working, when to start working, when it's work, when it's home. So I think also some jobs do require to be present, as in production, but also in services as well. Less so in the clerical work, that you can maybe do more from home. Efficiency is also a question, and I saw statistics that the efficiency really increased in the first month, and people were very excited, and contra-intuitively people like the idea
when they can work from home, but just the first month.
Correct, but then when it was postponed, the return to work, and it became obligatory for longer than this, the efficiency started to decrease. And I think the overall approach has to be balanced. It has to be overall encapsulated in a very good communication regarding the level of confidence, regarding the environment, regarding the transportation, regarding the overall society and the government measures. And I think that the telework is just a small component. I think it will have a bigger weight in the overall approach, but I think it's just one way to tackle the current situation.
I understand. And thank you for your input. I just want to offer briefly my 2 cents on it. We've heard, and we're, for people in the audience who do not know the Collier's brand, we're consultants in the real estate market. This is what we do. We advise on the office environment. And we obviously, since this whole thing started, we've been trying to find out what the future looks like, how we can better serve our clients, but in all honesty, how our business will survive and what we will look like going forward. Do we need to adapt? Do we need to, do other stuff inside the office, not just the office setting, etc. And there's a few interesting things. Exactly as Florin was saying, initially, people were very excited to work from home. Then, to quote a client of mine, kids don't care that you're at work. So if it's 2 p.m. and they want to play, or if it's 11 a.m. and they want to play, they don't care that you have to deliver a presentation or you have a call. They really don't, and they can be very loud. That's number one. And another more sensible and more pragmatical aspect, when it came to the fact that going on the long term with the work from home. So don't get me wrong, I want to make this very clear. A flexible amount of work and a flexible setting for the work going forward is 100% here to stay. That's without a question. But claiming that work from home will replace, 50 to 70% of a company's work environment, I think we're definitely not there yet. And I'll explain why. First is the sense of community. So for the first, 4 to 5 weeks, productivity was on the rise, then came boredom, then came disengagement. The ratio of which people attend calls is starting to drop, etc., etc., etc. And then it's a much more cost-oriented aspect of things, because if you ask an employee to work from home for a year or 2 years, I don't think a lot of them will be happy to pay for electricity in excess, for internet, Not to mention, you need to provide as a company some sort of basic furniture at least, and equipment. Some work with laptops, but they have monitors in the office setting, and they need those for more complex tests, right? So that means that once you have to equip, so in the first place, you have to equip the office. Let's say you have 100 employees. You have to equip the office for at least 70 or 80, desks and chairs and laptops and, monitors and whatnot. But then you have to buy all of them or most of them, at least the same number of desks and chairs and laptops and copy machines and stuff like that. So from a cost perspective, a certain percentage, I think we're going to see less people in the office on a daily basis. So going back to work from, let's say, 6 months from now, if you have 100 employees on any given day, you're probably going to have something like 60 to 80 people in your office. But I don't think that the office itself is disappearing or it's shrinking, because you need more space. The well-being trends that are becoming more and more apparent will demand individual rooms more and more for safety and privacy reasons. So I think while work from home and flexibility work is definitely a trend that's going to stay, it will definitely not replace the work environment. And let's get a little, let's say, on the legal side of things. And let me go to Cleopatra, who's a partner at the reputable Suciu-Popa law company. Law company or law house? I still struggle.
It's a law firm. It's a law firm.
So two nothing for me. So Cleopatra, what do you think from a legal standpoint? Is this whole environment of working from home easy peasy, easy to implement? I'm talking if you want to do that with 30-40% of your employees going forward. Does the Romanian legislation in itself help this trend, or do you need to be a little creative? How do things look?
First, thank you for inviting me today, and good afternoon, everybody. And on this, let's say, topic, I could be fortunate because I'm in a double position as an employer for staff in our own organization, and also as a lawyer acting for clients in various industries and sectors. So I may compare and see best practices and what different plans and plans for the future are in different areas of business. And whether we like it or not, it is possible that, or we're already seeing it, this work from home from becoming an exceptional circumstance, as Radu was pointing earlier, now to become part of the new normal. With, for instance, 2 days ago, I've seen, not in Romania, but it could be relevant, an announcement made by Twitter that starting from now on, all their employees can work from home forever. So we cannot just simply let aside this kind of trend, even if it means costs or legal issues such as, for instance, having e-signature tools or being attentive to GDPR and this type of stuff. For example, in a case where employees use their own devices, or having infrastructure prepared for cyber attacks or for data leakages. So there are all types of risks that, whether we like it or not, we should take it into account. And what I've seen and probably as a personal comment, what would matter for the future period is companies that can be flexible and can adapt would be the survivors of this quite tense period.
Yeah.
So what we should all try is to maybe increase productivity, not by making a clear demarcation between work from home and work from office, but just use this new technology, this smart working, in increasing productivity and also helping address the needs of the people, and not only the corporate profit. And for instance, taking care of the human resources, which we understand today, it became the key resource for companies. Going to the law component or the legal component, as we all may know, in Romania, the labor law is quite formalistic, and that was mainly for the protection of employees against abuses. Now, in the past month, we've seen more flexibility brought in by the legislator, with the employers being entitled to adopt measures which couldn't have been adopted individually until recently, such as imposing telework or work from home measures or individualized work programs. And those are also coupled with an increased responsibility for employers in relation to the health and safety rules. So we realize more and more that health and safety rules are not just a standard set that we each sign, that we acknowledge at the start of the year when we have the regular training, but they are something real, something that lives, that's changing every day, and more importance is placed with, of course, measures and plans and response plans being put in place, which depend on the type of activity, on the type of workforce. So we've seen a lot of flexibility and creativity in these areas, which until recently was not, let's say, a regular feature for the labor law component.
Yeah. Yes, Ivana, you have a question.
Thank you. I was sitting in silence too long, but coming back this home office, not home office. Again, I have a longer term vision. I am a great fan of remote working, so not necessarily home working, because some of the homes may be comfortable or not for that. But if we can work from home, then why could we not work from our other places or parks or whatever? And then probably in longer term, it will make a big change in the entire office market, because the traditional offices with, you know, a box for everybody will disappear. And there will be spaces where the colleagues come together time to time, and it is necessary for their social aspects, and also because the communication is much better. But in other periods, they can work from wherever they are, from
Sure.
their holiday place, this and that. And then potentially this will bring a change not only on the office market, Florin, but also on building the homes, because more and more people will consider not necessarily to buy an expensive apartment close to the office where they work, but go somewhere else where they can find more affordable and more comfortable places where they can also accommodate their homework. That's
You're very right, Ivana, and I was discussing actually very recently with one of our architects, and they are designing a new complex of apartments, and they are now facing the request of the developer to basically input in the basic design, which was not present until now, an office area at home. So indeed, the combination between home and office will become more present.
Yeah,
I think in terms of office market, it will have an impact. I think the more adaptive buildings towards a fresh air, clean, safe environment are the winning ones. You will see there'll be going to be a less interest for the ones which not allow for the windows to open, for longer elevator rides, for closed windows, for dense areas. So the buildings which are more modern, more adapted in terms of AVSC, of fresh air quality, of sanitization measures, those are the ones who will be still of interest for the people. And this trend of working from home and social distancing, I think they are going to balance out each other. So see more space required per each employee, and Bucharest, according to all Colliers surveys, is in the top 10 markets in Bucharest, in Europe, sorry, as being in terms of density of employees because of efficiency. And you are all representatives of big companies. Romania is interesting because it's efficient overall. So it reflects in the office market as well. So this will counterbalance in the end with the social distancing, people needing more space, working from home. But overall, I think the surface will not decrease per much, but it's going to change the dynamics of the work.
And I think if I feel like I can predict the future today, I feel I have superpowers and I want to exercise my superpowers. And the prediction is as follows. I think most office settings going forward will have a 15 to 20% home component to it. That will mean couches, that will mean resting areas, that will mean larger eating facilities, whatever. So the employees who are there for 8, 10, 12 hours can recuperate on the job. They don't have to go home. And if they want to work late at night or, very early in the mornings, they can do that. And I also think that, so 80% office, 20% home environment inside the office building. And for the apartments and for the houses, I think it's going to be probably 90% home, but I think they will have a 10% small corner somewhere where they can fit a small desk, a monitor, and a laptop so they can work. And I think this is definitely a trend to stay. I wanna definitely engage with Romulus. I've met Romulus a year ago, and
I think we're discussing one of the work from home. Was it work from home at the time that we were discussing in the panel?
No, it wasn't work from home. I think it was if Romania is still relevant on an ever-changing job market. We were discussing if Romania is still relevant when it comes to cost and skill level of Romanian employees. That was the subject of that conference. But now I remember that Romulus at the time I was observing him, and he was very calm and well argumented in his opinion. So I'm sure he's gonna do the same today. So I wanna ask him if do you see we got a very interesting question from the audience. Allow me to read it to you. Is it going to be, Romulus, a people-driven market or still a companies-driven market? And I thank Bogdan Nicolae for the question.
Well, that's it's difficult to say. I think when we look at the market overall, obviously there have been some industries which have lost, and there were some industries which were on the rise. We are now on the Zoom platform, for example, and Zoom has had I think at least 10 times the market value increase as opposed to the pre-COVID situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if this, this winning and losing and the ratio between is proportional or not. So we don't know yet. However, I think at this moment, we haven't seen, for example, in Wipro, we haven't seen we haven't seen that much attrition. So attrition is basically people who leave the company. For people who don't know the terminology, there are people who are not also familiar with that. So obviously attrition has gone down, which means people are not so inclined to leave their current employer, which means it's starting, or it could be the start of a company-driven market again. If we remember, if we go back to, let's say, 2010, when the actual financial crisis hit Romania, obviously a lot of people were out of jobs. And I think at that time, companies were the ones driving the market. It wasn't an employee-driven market, but rather a company-driven market at the time. With more and more investors coming in, the existing companies expanding, even ourselves in Genpact, for example, take Wipro. I also worked in Genpact. At my time in Genpact in 2007, we had I think not more than 1,500 employees. If I'm not wrong, Krina can correct me. And now they're booming all across. Wipro had about 150 employees at the time. I think the ratio between support functions and billable employees, as we call them, was almost half and half. And there were even the plans or rumors going around that the company will shut down.
Okay.
But then things started to be on the rise. I mean, we got new clients. We started expanding, and now we're about, I don't know, 1,500 employees in Romania. That in the span of less than 10 years. So each year we more than, let's say, added 150 employees year on year. So I think it will probably be a more company-driven market, if you ask me, in the short to medium term. In the long term, I think things, for example, let's assume a vaccine would be developed next year in March. People will get vaccinated, and then everyone will feel much more comfortable going out, and they will or spending more, doing leisure more, and so on. That means all those industries who got affected at the beginning, which is, you know, hotels, travel agencies, air transport, those will start to pick up. The ones that I believe these will be more or less the last to pick up from the bunch who have been hit hard. And once the consumer trends will change and the economy will start, the economical engine will start running again, it will probably shift again to a people-driven market. At least this is my view. So let's say for a year, more or less, we will have a more company-driven market. But after that, once consumer behavior changes, we might go back to the same paradigm we had last year when we discussed.
May I put you on the spot and ask a somewhat difficult question?
Okay.
And you know, feel free to give me a politically correct answer. It's fine. But I was wondering, so if a lot of people did not lose their jobs, and companies still needed those people. In other words, it's an employees market, right? I mean, people get to choose because all the good employees have 2 or 3 offers. So that's scenario 1. And scenario 2 is, you know, it's an employer's market. 20% of people lose their jobs. They're unqualified. They're too old to be relevant for companies looking for younger roles, etc. Do you think that has an impact? And I know, of course, the answer is yes, but do you think it has a huge impact or a large impact on the way that companies treat people? If they know they can, you know, pick and choose whatever they want, because there's the other theory that says, and it's in direct connection with the first question I asked you, Romulus. People, company driven. A lot of people say, you know, I mean, if we get enough people to choose from, it's not a priority to treat people nice. But there's a general global trend, which I very much like, that talks about wellness and talks about employee engagement. I really want to believe I'm experiencing a great culture in Colliers, and I'm not just saying that because it's my company and I've been there for 10 years, but I mean, it's a really high emotional intelligence people, good, genuinely good people who care about their employees. Do you think that's just an act? Or do you think companies need to care about their people because they care about profit? Or do you think they actually care about people, or they're going to start caring about people more?
Obviously we can only comment on our own companies, and we can give a feedback towards a more detailed feedback within our own companies. Like you rightly pointed out, that in Colliers, you felt that as an employee. And again, it's difficult to sound unbiased when answering this question. For example, in Wipro, at least Wipro Romania, luckily enough, the CEO of Wipro Romania and the strategy that he has actually puts, and obviously Vivek couldn't be here with us today, but the strategy that was enacted before actually sending people home was that okay, the paradigm will change. We'll probably lose some business in some areas, but we're probably gonna win some business in other areas. So we're not gonna dismiss people if that happens. We're gonna keep them on bench, as we call them. We will not dismiss them whatsoever. We'll try to reduce costs in other, non-essential areas. For example, maybe we had, budgets aside for team events, team outings. Obviously, those got cut down. We had maybe some salary increases lined up for this year, which will probably again they got cut down. We probably had some bonuses which might be cut down, but at the end of the day, we are cutting down on these areas to keep the people, even if they're non-productive in the short term. So Wipro never had this. At least Wipro never had the strategy of a short-term vision when it comes to employees. Obviously,
that's really good to hear, of course.
Exactly. If you were asking me before COVID, and let's say we were in a normal business scenario where a client says, "I will end my contract," obviously we will do whatever it took at the time to redeploy people, but I don't believe we would have put them on bench. Honestly speaking, the rest who couldn't be fitted within the current roles would probably be given a severance package and then be left in the market, and the market was strong at the time to find new roles. In this current context, where we also feel finding a job would be difficult, letting people go would be a bit unethical. So if you have if you can reduce unnecessary costs in other areas just to keep the people, at least for a period of time, because you can't, I'm not saying we can keep people out of a role for more than 3 to 6 months, but at least within that time frame, maybe things will settle down, maybe new clients will come in, maybe existing clients will increase their let's say their business, so we can redeploy these people. Because essentially, at least the advantage that we have here in outsourcing and in process services is that we don't really employ at all times highly skilled, highly experienced people. Most of the times, the only skill that we're looking for is foreign language. So if they have that foreign language and they've worked, let's say, in an accounts payable process or in accounting, if they choose to do so and they accept it, they can move, let's say, to a maybe technical support role, or working for a pharmaceutical client, and so on.
So basically, the priority is to retrain and repurpose.
Exactly, and we are a very standardized industry. So we have SOPs, we have pre-process trainings, process trainings, and so on.
Understood.
So this standardization also helps. Obviously, like I said, it's entirely subjective to the individual if he wants to make that change. Then we have the tools at our disposal to make the transition.
Understood.
Now, but again, not to sound that Wipro is a heaven. At the end of the day, we're all businesses. We need to make money. We need to build people to clients. This is how the business model works. So this cannot continue indefinitely. But I think 3 to 6 months we can put the people on bench, and within this time to find them suitable roles within the company.
Understood. And I appreciate your answer. I think it's both realistic, and I do believe that's how things are with your company. Mirela, I seem to have frozen on the screen. I don't know if you guys can see me. For me, my screen is frozen, but I hope you can see me.
No, we can hear you well, and it's just a photo of you, and it's nice.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Romulus. Coffee's on me. So I'll tell you exactly why, and this is going to be probably a spicy comment, and I hope it's not going to attract a lot of dismissal on you guys' part, because you're all senior leaders. But I want to say this. I was talking to one of my older clients. I'm not going to name names or industry or anything like that. He was a really smart manager, He's not even in Romania anymore. And he asked me what the success of the company long-term is determined by, right? Any company. And I said, and I truly believe that for most companies to care about its employees, because that's actually the currency, that's the value in 2020 and going forward. We're not, extracting coal and gold from the mountains anymore. So it's about the people. And he actually looked at me dead in the eye and he said, "Funny enough, George, I think it's the opposite. I think that you're successful as a company when you don't care about your employees anymore." What he meant was that you're able to move and make strategic moves as you need without caring about if people lose their jobs or anything like that. Sort of like in a general type of way. You're going to sacrifice 100 people to win the war. I disagree with that statement, but it's something that stuck with me, and I think the times we're passing right now are a good reminder of how we should engage and behave with one another. And I want to go to Crina and Radu because they're the ones that are potentially, and I apologize if I'm mistaken, they're the ones that are potentially closest to the HR phenomenon, let's say, probably the most engaged with various roles in their organization. And I want to ask you this: we kept, going on for almost an hour about the role the organization has during these times. But Crina, and maybe afterwards Radu, if I may ask of you, what do you think employees should do? What's their responsibility going forward?
Yeah, look, I will respond, and I think I will also add to the discussion which was before.
Please.
With regards to whether this is an employee or employer market. Being in HR for over 22 years and actually spending most of my time in recruitment, I think I would actually propose we change this discussion. This is not a healthy discussion when we actually position employers and employees on antagonic sides.
I fully agree.
We are not in a conflicting situation. So I would say that what I like about COVID, there are many other things, but what I like about it, I've seen a willingness for people to connect and engage on a deeper and more meaningful conversation than ever. And when I mean people, I'm emphasizing both on employees, employers, and customers working actually differently, because we are forced by this global pandemic to actually think bigger than we are, because we will not be able to go out of this successfully on our own. I think the current environment showed us this piece. So that's my first comment.
I'm really glad you're saying that, Crina. I really agree with you on this one. I really agree that we should not be on the antagonistic side, and I'm happy you brought up that point. Thank you.
Yeah. The second point is on continuing on this statement. Both employers and employees are equally responsible for the future. And, if I would have an opinion being part of a multinational organization, in Europe, we enjoy as employees a lot of prerogatives. My question is, are we giving enough back? Did we actually move into that entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial mindset, which is a little bit evolved into the future and actually focuses on how are we staying relevant? Do we show interest in where the business is going? Can we actually sacrifice certain things as employees for the benefit of the business, even if that business is not ours? We are not, holding shares. And actually, I have great examples from Genpact as we speak on this trend, which I would like to quote. So that's my second idea on the discussion which you just triggered. And last but not least, I think this discussion now goes beyond our role as employees. The current world in which we are living forces us to think at life and work holistically. We will all have to learn new social skills. We will all need less when we actually step out on the street first, so that we protect ourselves, our families, and our colleagues. So, I'm very, very optimistic on the soft, valuable, value-driven and value-related future which lies in front of us. Now, obviously, it's about us to make it or break it, right? And going back to the second point on how employees can contribute for the benefit of the companies, I'll tell you, our employees in Genpact contributed in Europe these days. They were, many of them, donating some of their leaves. because, you know, we had the tendency now, as we are all at home, to cancel all our holidays. And we went to our employees and we said, look, this may actually have an adverse impact on the financials. Are you still willing to take time off, refresh, rejuvenate, even if you are at home? And most of them did. So I think if you speak to people, to their hearts, if you are actually putting the conversation at the right dynamic, not antagonistic, but bring the discussion in a co-creating environment, things will change. Is it easy? No. Do we all need to reinvent ourselves? Certainly.
I want to add on that. We just had the exact same, it's funny enough you should mention it, we had the exact same experience. We were approached by our leadership, you know, and they asked us, some of us, as probably any organization has, we had some leftovers, vacation days from 2019 and whatever, right? And they said, listen guys, obviously the real estate sector is one of the sectors that's impacted right now. And we don't know what's going to happen. Would you kindly consider taking some vacation time from last year at least, you know, and help us out so you don't put us in a difficult position? I really appreciated that. And as you said, I don't think we had a single no in the company, because obviously it goes without saying, when you're there for people, people will be loyal, people will be there for you when you need it, and they're not going to look to you as a company, they're going to look at the direct leader, the direct manager, and if a loyalty and the bond is secure with that person, that goes a long way. Radu, what do you think? And then I'm going to go to Cleopatra and ask her to tell us you know, her view on this. Oh, and I apologize for the lack of video. I tried, you know, 5 times to restart it. It just, the camera doesn't want to see my face anymore.
No, but we can hear you very well. Okay. No, I fully agree that it is clearly not a separation employee-employer. Okay, it's a common approach, and we should have this conversation, employers and employees. And maybe the first topic of this conversation would be where are we headed to? What is the, let's say, ideal profile of the employee in 1 year from now, in 20 years from now? I don't know. But it is clear that there are a lot of trends accelerating about the future skills. And we can see more and more that an employee should be very innovative. Okay, there are the hard skills. Of course, we will discuss a lot about technology, about digital skills, and that's the base. But on top of that, I would say that the soft skills are becoming even more important, if I dare to say, okay. And among these, I see first the flexibility, the adaptability. At the beginning, you were asking me, okay, how do I see the future? And I said, I don't know. But what is clear is that we need to learn how to tackle, how to work in a kind of VUCA environment of when we don't know nothing, still try to find solution and to make steps. So one of the first skills will be to deal with uncertainty, okay? Not to panic, to be flexible, to be adaptable, to be resilient, because this becomes one of the priority skills on the list. To be innovative, of course, to be a risk taker. This is very important. It is not so common, but it becomes more and more important. To be a fast learner, that means that you also have to, it's together with the risk taking, because you have to fail, you have to fail fast, okay, learn from it and start again. And this is not obvious. And it is also, some of these skills are probably more or less characteristics to some future generations. If we are looking at Z generation, Alpha generation, I would expect to have a more, let's say, acceptability among these guys, but that doesn't mean we have to, let's say, just have the conversation with our kids. I enjoy that, but it's not enough. And it's also related to even that conversation we had about flexi working. We really need to understand what are the values of the future generation of our future employees. I remember a few years ago, we had the kind of, at HR Club, we had the kind of conversation with a group of youngsters about how do they see the life in the office, how do they see their professional future. And a few comments from them. First is that most of them, they didn't want to work in a corporate environment. So almost most of them wanted to start their business. And second, about the flexi time and the time spent in the office, I say, look, I can stay 3 days and 3 nights if I have a project. This is very important. And then just let me go. I want to go to play basketball. Don't keep me there. So really, it's important for me to have my flexi time and to have a purpose. And that's another story. Okay. So yeah, I can go on, but let's stop here.
I wanna go with the next question twofolded. First and foremost, apologies for the technical problems, but I seem to somehow have solved them. I want to go twofold. First, I want to go to Cleopatra and kindly ask her to see what her clients or the companies she's coordinating in this unpredictable environment are saying about safety in the workplace. And I know for a fact, because he instructed me as well on that yesterday, that Florin has a very specific theory, which I find very relatable and logic about the safety, the pillars of the safety in the workplace. So Cleopatra, could you share your knowledge with us, and then we're gonna go to Florin to kindly ask him.
Yes, and what I'm telling is basically from the principal perspective, that each company currently should have in place, starting from Monday next week, those types of prevention and protection plans, which target avoiding risks, or if not possible, assessing and mitigating them, and also prevention measures. And in most cases, this means a reassessment of risks, which is done frequently enough due to this changing circumstances, and also response plans in case of COVID infections. And I'm not going to go into, let's say, technical details on that, but just give you a few examples of what might those mean as things to maybe to consider for the coming period. For instance, what was considered, because you're talking about office spaces, what was considered until recently a state-of-the-art office space with open spaces and air recirculation and energy efficiency and so on. Now it could be, or it could add to additionally to exactly. On the other hand, when you have an office space with individual offices and narrow corridors, you need to adapt. For instance, I've seen a funny example, applying the traffic rules that you would apply for a right of way when going through a narrow road, because that's something that almost everybody can relate to. It's very
we're gonna need to signal left or right when we go to the kitchen or to make a coffee, right?
Yes. So another case, most of you probably have already response plans in case one of the employees returning to office on Monday or the stages after. What happens if that employee is infected or is found positive? Not sure if everybody actually tries to see all the risks of the scenario, with having the office closed, with having the people from the health department coming and spraying disinfectants, and asking questions like, whether do you have original documents in your open cupboards and so on, or what would be the effect on equipment, laptops, computers? So these are actually practical things that you'd need to address in the coming weeks and in a pragmatic and practical manner.
Let me offer you a statistic, and for people involved with office environments in this panel, Florin most likely, most of all. We were just we executed a study, and we released it. I think it was, the press release was last week, talking about what percentage of employees would like to keep the work from home as part of their package, and obviously it's the majority of them. But at the same time, the very interesting fact is that the estimation and expectation is that most companies, for example, use, Florin knows this number very well, let's say 10 square rentable, 10 square meters rentable surface per each employee. So you have 100 employees, you're probably leasing somewhere around 1,000 square meters or so. That number is estimated to go up to 14 or 15 square meters per employee. So what we're saying is a part of your employees will work from home, but due to the new regulations, your office setup, and it's exactly what you said, Cleopatra, you will have more closed rooms, the circulations will be larger than normal, and the desks themselves will have to be more separate. The famous zigzag rule, you're not going to have people facing each other and whatnot. Florin, what can you explain to us your pillars for safety when it comes to going back to work?
Of course I can. I'd like to take a little bit of a step back, and I think I really like Karina's approach to this. I think that the thing that COVID kind of triggered in all of us a different way of thinking, and if I am to take a step back, I think generally the world is in a better place to tackle such kind of an impact that the pandemics is bringing than 100 years ago. I think we are as weak as the weakest link in the overall global and local society. So we can't think as individuals or family or single units. We need to think as part community of the connected world. Mm-hmm. So I think this will trigger at the world level, at the global level, global society level, a different way of thinking. I'm also thinking, and I'm hoping that, as Radu has said, that I think this gives us the opportunity as overall society, and especially in Romania, that we have been orienting more to a cost-effective base of economy, more to a value creation position in the overall chain of European economy. So, and as part of the office world, I think, as I said, we are interconnected, and until now, the overall conversation was how do we make it safe at the workplace level, and we as industry have prepared. As individual entities, but also as an association. There is an association called Association of Real Estate Investors. So it's the first level of cross-company cooperation. As we've put together a set of measures, we discussed with the government, with the INSP, with the coordination center, with Mr. Arafat. We place it in 7 positions, but this is only 50% of the work. 50% means what is outside the office area. So how safe people travel to work and back. What are they doing when they are in the office? How safe they behave when they are in the office or in the common areas? How safe they behave at home? So as Karina pointed out, we can't really think as individuals. And I can walk you through the set of measures if you want. If you want to hear that, we divide it in 7 steps: sanitization, social distancing, and individual protection, control access, physical separation, ventilation, and treatment. I think most of the responsible companies have analyzed these measures. They put pressure on the property managers, on the landlords to deliver a good property measure. I can give a few examples. What also is important, that most of the Romanian office stock is in a good position to face this kind of crisis. So this is mostly modern, it's recently delivered. 10 person per square meter is on average. In some areas, it's even more than. So I think this 10 person per square meter is on average, including the kitchenette, including the meeting room.
100%.
If we exclude that, it goes even as low as 6 or 7 or 8. And I think Krina knows better.
Corinne, I'm just briefly interrupting you, not to mention the call center, and you know that situation very well, where the average is not 1, including the kitchen and conference room, the average is not 1 per 10, it's 1 per 5, and that's or 1 per 6, you know, so that's a more difficult situation. You were saying yesterday, and I let me allow me to reiterate our discussions. You are talking about the 4 pillars. You are talking about transportation. You are talking about the responsibility of the office building, the responsibility of the employee and of the employer for safety going forward.
Correct. I think that we are, as I said, we're part of this interconnected chain. We are as weak as the weakest link. Everybody has its own component, and I think as much as I don't like to say it, I think we should look at the rules that the government is setting with very strict attention, and we should educate our employees and our residents of our buildings to respect those measures, because we as a society, as we know in Romania, we're tempted not to really respect the rules. We like to say that the rules are meant to be broken, but in this kind of case, I think we should really abide to the rules and try to put pressure on the horizontal level at society level to do this. I think, and my hope is that we will emerge as a better society in this respect.
Thank you so much. Tivadar, may I ask you, because you're relatively, I would say, you know, new, as you were saying, to the role, and this crisis, this pandemic has caught you spot on the job. You barely had time to get accustomed to the whole thing. But it's very clear for me, and I think everybody else in attendance, that you're really, you know, you really want to be into the daily operations and close to your people, and you're obviously very passionate about what you're doing there. What would be something that you do in your company right now that you'd feel could be an inspiration, or everybody attending today could learn from? It can be anything. It doesn't have to be, obviously, if it's something very specific regarding how you, I don't know, keep safe the certain circulation inside the factory, maybe that's too specific, but as a general principle related to people and your company, something that everybody can learn from, what do you feel can inspire them?
Well, as you say, there are some specifics that we made. For instance, taking the second bus, because it turned out very quickly that people, when they come to work, it is good that we tell them stay apart and keep the distance, but as they come with a company bus to the factory, they are trapped. So we had to invest in second bus and changing the shifts in a way that they can work more flexible. So these are, I would say, more specifics to certain industries, certain factories. But in broader term, what I would consider important is that all of us, and it is true for individuals, for managers, and for organizations, that the speed of adapting to changes is critical, because every day there is something new, and we never know what will happen tomorrow, which ordinance or how you call it will be adopted by the government on Friday. And when you agree with the ministries that they will give a license for the new disinfectant, and the second day the Minister of Health resigns. So you have to be ready for these changes, and this is what's important for all the organizations, to speed and adapt flexibly. Okay. Whatever comes. These old theories that we plan.
First adapt and do it fast.
Do it fast, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
This is critical, and that's what we try to do. Just to give another example, that sorry, I told you that I was not able to talk to the people individually. So from Georgiana, our PR manager, we got a brilliant idea, this talk to the CEO. I am new to everybody, and now I have a direct line. So anybody from the company can directly access to me, write to me, talk to me. And it is a totally new way of engaging people, you know, not on a big forum where we introduce ourselves and then here is the next CEO and then let me introduce, but something of one-by-one communication with 2,000 people. Obviously, it's not happening every day, but to give the chance, and it is transforming somehow the culture of the organization.
I understand. Okay. Thank you so much. Do you think that transformation, is it your experience that it can happen, you know, as fast as it needs to happen, or is it going to take, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 years, especially for the larger ones?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes when you're a giant, you move very slowly.
Yeah. It is. I like to use the example of big oil tankers. I used to work on that area before. So when it goes on the sea, the ship, you know, then to change the direction is very slow. But when you change it, you cannot stop it. It goes.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's such a huge ship. Exactly.
Yeah.
Cleopatra, just very briefly, we only have exactly 8 minutes left. And I kindly ask you, I have 3 questions left. One is for Cleopatra, one is for Romulus. So I would say, let's say 2 minutes. And then I have one from our audience today, which I think which is gonna be like an open-ended. Whoever wants to pick that one up would be highly welcome. So for Cleopatra, in a nutshell, what would be the legal aspect that people here today need to be aware of going forward concerning this whole situation? If it's something outstanding that you really want to make people aware of.
Let's say one of the things that we haven't discussed, and it's a thing that is happening now, and you need it sometimes to make that big tank move faster, be related to redundancies.
Okay.
And those are a reality. For instance, statistics say that prior to COVID, we had in Romania 5.5 million employees. Now, yesterday, the Ministry of Labor published the latest figures, 900,000 contracts suspended and 350,000 contracts terminated. So almost 1 in 4 employees is currently either suspended or...
That's absolutely staggering. That's absolutely huge.
Not sure if you are aware of that. And what I'm saying is,
I knew the large numbers. I didn't know the exact figures, but yes, I was aware that close to 17 or 18% of jobs were lost. I heard the statistic that close to 7,000 jobs are lost for each day of the lockdown in Romania.
Yes, and one of the fields in which labor law remains as strict as before and as formalistic as before is the one related to terminations. And what it should be done is, and that's the advice I'm not giving only to my clients, but to everybody, try to do it now in a manner that is both legal and respectful and considerate for the people. And as examples of best practices I've seen recently can be things like helping those employees transition to a new future by means of trainings. And now you have a lot of possibilities, even online trainings, which are not expensive, or doing things that are important for this period, like maintaining health insurance plans, which for a company are not a huge cost, but for an employee that is fired these days can make a difference.
Of course.
And So that would be
or do as
it.
Romulus was saying, and hopefully everybody can follow in Wipro's footsteps. Try to keep them in temporary roles for 4 to 6 months until you can repurpose what they were doing. I'm aware of the fact, I'm not being naive here. I'm aware of the fact that it's not going to be a solution for every employee, especially for the low-skilled ones going forward, and not a solution for every company. But let's hope that there are as many companies as possible doing what Wipro is doing. And speaking of Romulus, Romulus, if you have one concern, just one, because we only have time for one. If you have just one concern going forward regarding the back to work environment, what would that be? It can be business related, it can be health related.
I think what would be the challenge that I foresee the most would be whether people are actually willing to come back to work, because
fair enough.
No, exactly. I mean, I think people are afraid, honestly speaking. And they
are you guys coming from the 18th? At least a part of you?
No. So basically, the strategy in Wipro is like this: support functions who don't have a very stringent need to be within the office. I'm obviously crossing out here facilities management and IT, which they might need to supervise some equipment.
Sure.
But the rest, we have been granted a work from home exception, if I can call it that, for the next 4 months. Okay. So until October, something like that, we can work from home. Whilst the rest, we are planning to bring back only those employees where we had technical challenges or connectivity issue.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, so essentially, I think the main challenge now when returning to office, from my perspective, apart from the employee reluctancy due to medical concerns, I do see that as a main challenge, but also I think you need to build a very exhaustive plan which takes into account all parameters related to safety, related to business, related to technology, and which employees will you bring back first. So how you build that strategy, I think it's very important.
Fair point.
And this is basically what I'm working on at the moment in Wipro. So I'm working with the quality team, with the HR team, to build a plan. And with
as soon as you have it, we'll sign an NDA and you can share it with everybody.
I was actually going to ask Florin if he can share those measures that he has.
Absolutely, Romulus.
Yeah, because I think that will help all of us as employers, employees. We can even share it with our our office landlords. Obviously, if it's not something very
you guys are basically neighbors, so you can meet halfway and exchange experience, keeping the social distance. All right, so I have. Yeah.
Roger, can I say just one sentence about what is my biggest fear about this whole story or going back to normal life? My biggest fear is that we go back to the normal life without remembering what we learned during this period. That would be a mistake.
It's a well-taken point, Ivadar. Thank you. Okay, well understood. That's a good intervention. Thank you. So, as I was saying, we have 1 minute left, and this is gonna be a very short answer, but we're gonna go around the table, kindly asking you to tell me, in your opinion, for each of you, what is the #1 power skill or soft skill that we're all gonna need going forward. So it's just one, and your answer, kindly, please let it be 1 to 3 words. That's it. So the #1 skill we're gonna need going forward. This is my screen right now, so I'm gonna go from the bottom up. I'll start with Krina.
So from me is unlearning.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, unlearning and learning something new. Very nice. Romulus?
Lack of prejudice.
Oh, these are good answers. I like this. Florin?
I'll take more than 3 words. I like a book of Nassim Taleb called Anti-Fragility. I think resilience was mentioned here, but resilience means that you're flexible but staying in the same place. I think anti-fragile is the way that the national systems evolve. We will emerge as a natural system in a better position with better skills. So my main skill would be adaptability.
Thank you. Tivadar?
I don't know if it's a skill or not, but togetherness, because we are one.
Community.
It's a great takeaway.
Thank you. Radu?
I will say the same. I will say the team. That means the capability of building the team and making them bringing meaningful contribution to the company in these dire times.
Thank you, sir. Cleopatra, I apologize for letting you go last, but it's just the way the screen is. So please accept my apologies, please.
No problem. My choice word would be agility, which means adapting fast and also take advantage of the new opportunities that appear during this period.
And just for anybody watching us on all this adaptability, anti-fragility, agility, being together as a community, all this, there are countless online resources that we can learn for free. And I think it's a nice reminder that we have that on our disposal, tablets or laptops, and it's easy to learn. So thank you, Mirela. I think we should thank everybody, right? We're a bit over time, but not by much.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you all. Thank you, George. Thank you, our guest speaker.
Thank
Very
you as well.
interesting discussions. And let's see you soon, maybe at the Workplace for the Future next event, what will be in July.
Thank you all for
Okay.
participating and being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.